Hello once again, 8th graders at New Augusta North. This is Mr. Ludy. This is our second meeting that I told Mr. Seiferman and Mrs. Blessick that I would do to let them know how we have done the second meeting in the past. The second meeting is intended to show you what you now need to be doing in order to build your boat. At this point, you should have a sponsor, you should have everything in place, you should have a contract, and you should be ready to build after watching this video and asking any questions you might still have from your teachers, which then they could pass on to me if they have anything that they still want to know about. So this second meeting is about building and everything that now happens for the next 3 weeks. There will be one more meeting that we will have 2 days probably before the regatta to let you know how race day will go. So I hope you have a sponsor at this point, because here we go with the next part of the building process. One folder I did not show you last time that I will now show you because it is beneficial, and a lot of these jobs probably have already been assigned. You should have a crew chief, a leader. At this point, you also need to have a, in my opinion, second person. It could be the same person, but it does not have to be. But you should have a person who's now in charge of building the boat. Also at this point, you should have an accountant. And I would not say it's a bad idea. I would say it's a great idea to have a vice accountant, an assistant accountant, because you don't want to have to shut down your operation for the day and say, well, we can't build our boat today because our accountant isn't here. No, anybody on your team should be able to step up and write a check. And then, obviously, everybody's has hopefully been involved in getting a sponsor. You have a team artist that did your design for your team logo. And now you should also, that team artist should be working on artwork for the boat itself. Also, you will be making a commercial in the next 3 weeks. You should have somebody in charge of that. And then you will have your driver or drivers. We've always allowed 1 or 2 people to be in the boat. No, not everybody has to be in the boat. Just 1 or 2 people will be in the boat. So this is on your flash drive in the Jobs folder. Also, there's this worksheet called the Think It Through worksheet. This has never been required, but this is just a worksheet that you might want to pull up and start thinking about some of the things, such as how you're going to make your boat go, just some useful information, but obviously not required, which is probably a good segue to remind you, I'm not a teacher at New Augusta anymore. Mr. Seiferman and Mrs. Blessick are. So anything I may say in this video, they may go, we're not doing that. They may say, forget it. They may have new things that they do. I already know that there are things that they're doing that we never did before. Things I wish we could have done. So anything I say, just remember they are now in charge. So talked about jobs. I think probably one of the best things to do would maybe be to just go right down the list. So accounting. You are going to write checks for all the things you buy. So in the checkbook, what we have always done is any check that comes from your sponsor should be a 4-digit check. Any check you write will be a 3-digit check. So checks from your sponsor start with 1001 and go up. checks you write start with 101 and go up. So, probably the first day you actually will be building, let's say you got a check on May 1st. And if they ever turn into hash marks like that, you can simply drag, let's see if we can get it to work. Oh, I'm doing it in the wrong place. Drag this over, and you will actually see the date. So, first check from your sponsor. Are you buying any material? No. Amount of material? No. Price per material? No. This is a sponsor check. Let's pretend your sponsor gives you all of your money. All of it. So now you have $200,000. Once again, go up here to the top and drag this over if you need to be able to see those numbers. Okay, well now, probably one of the first things you're going to buy is the bottom of your boat. Let's say the bottom of your boat in cardboard. Let's say you do that on Monday. And let me make sure I'm telling you the right date. Monday will be the 16th. So 5/16/16. What type of cardboard or what kind of material are you buying? You're buying, let's see if I can actually spell. You're buying cardboard. Amount of it, let's say you're buying 1,000 square inches. Yeah, I know you're probably laughing at me. Never claimed to be a good typer. If I remember correctly from our price list, a square inch of cardboard costs $10. Well, and if you ever have it just change on you, you might have to go in and format it and just go to General and basically whatever you type in. So price per unit, $10 per square inch. Well, other description, none. Well, if you're buying 1,000 square inches at $10 per square inch, you are about to spend $10,000. Well, that's not a credit, that's not a plus, it's a debit. And if you start off with $200,000 and you just spent $10,000, you now have $190,000 left. I cannot stress enough that you need to keep a good checkbook. Every single time a check is written, the accountant needs to get on the computer. I always passed out the little red Lenovo science computers, but see if Mr. Sieferman and Miss Blessed can get you a computer somehow, usually 2 or 3 in a room. I don't know how that will work, but we never accepted this on paper. We've always made students do this digitally because then it's a lot easier for us to grade. So you will continue to write checks and keep a balance. If your sponsor did not give you $200,000, they only gave you $50,000 to get you started. That's the way I always did it. Make sure you don't run out of money, because if you run out of money, how can you continue to write checks? I can't write checks if I don't have money in my checking account. Either can you. So that was the accounting. Well, let's jump to commercial. Way back at our first meeting, I believe you were shown a commercial, and you will be making a commercial that is a commercial that promotes you, the regatta, but your sponsor and their company. What I've always told students is have fun with this. I don't know that Mr. Sieferman and Miss Blessig have any more samples to show you. I might be able to digitize some that I have on DVD and maybe get those to your teachers, but just have fun with this. Don't stress about it. Get your top Spanish students, get your native speakers to become involved in this. But have fun. Make it entertaining. What I've always told students is don't sit behind a table, don't sit behind a desk and just read off of a script. Be up, be moving, get my attention. I don't even want to give you any more examples just because I want you to make this commercial very unique. Get my attention. Get your teacher's attention. Make me laugh. The best commercials I've seen over all the years that I helped with the regatta were commercials that just made me laugh. I've had commercials that made me laugh so hard I was crying. That's a good commercial. Well, what do we want in this commercial? We want the commercial to be about 30 seconds in English. Now, I would love to say we are going to, go through all of this stuff that we have posted down here on this paper, but history the last few years said, quite honestly, we didn't have time. But technically, the commercial must be 30 seconds or less in length. If you exceed that, you're going to get fined $100 per second. So a 31-second commercial or a 60-second commercial is going to cost you more money. But we are automatically charging you $1,000 per second of your commercial. So you are going to pay $30,000 for your commercial. Anybody that wants to complain about that, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, they have to pay to make a commercial, then they have to pay to put it on television. But what does that get them? That gets people coming into their business. Well, as a race team, you got money from your sponsor. Well, now you get to make a commercial saying, hey, come to the regatta, come check us out. You get to pay for a commercial, but every team is paying this $30,000, so don't whine. All you need to do in your commercial is mention you, your team name, your sponsor's name, as in the teacher, their company. As I just said, be creative. Don't just sit behind a table and read a script. And then you need to edit it. There is so much technology now at your fingertips. I am now fully expecting probably most teams to record their commercial on their phone. But work with Mr. Kepley, work with your teachers, but Mr. Kepley's your best resource of getting software. There's software on the internet, but get some software like Microsoft Movie Maker, and there are others, and edit the commercial. Put some titles at the beginning, put credits at the end, put music in it. And you're going to get 5 points for doing an English commercial for all 5 of these, so 25 points. And then you need to just turn around and make the exact same commercial in Spanish. That's it. Make the commercial in English, should be 30 seconds, and then make it in Spanish, an exact copy of it. But then mention your teacher, their company, you, be creative, edit it. What I always kind of try to get students to do was title, English, Spanish, credits. And then it's done. Alright. Enough about the commercial. Now what we need to talk about, we've already talked about contracts and sponsorship. Now let me show you, this is called a How Tall is the Hole worksheet. This is a worksheet that I used to require for every person in the group. They needed to either be on a worksheet by themselves, or they need to be on this worksheet with another person. That's especially true if you have 2 people in the boat. So insert your name here, put a partner here. And then, part of the reason I stopped doing this was because I started getting pushback. I did this for 10 years. And one of my last years doing it, I started having people go, well, my daughter, my son doesn't want you to know how much they weigh. I weigh 200 pounds. I am 5'4". I am overweight. And I don't care who knows what my weight is. But I didn't even want to start dealing with people going, oh, I don't want anybody to know my weight. Fine. Don't do the worksheet. But what we need, what this worksheet's intended, it's a lesson basically on something called Archimedes' principle. And basically what Archimedes figured out is that for every kilogram of mass you put in a boat, it moves about 1,000 cubic centimeters out of the way. So every kilogram you put in a boat is going to move about a liter of water out of the way. So anywhere you see gray here, you can simply highlight it and type the answer in. And then take your weight, divide it by 2.2, you get a kilogram. And then it works you through, and I just gave you the answer if you were paying attention. Then it has you do a sample, so don't get confused. 6 through 10 is a sample. So right here, you should get an answer. Then you jump back and do your weight again. Figure out about an approximate length and width of your bottom of your boat. Then you take the answer from step 2, the answer from step 3, divide them. That should tell you how tall the side of your boat is. Most people, based on what I think of as a typical boat, most people find out that the side of their boat should be about 4 or 5 centimeters tall, and that's probably even a little high. What that's saying is that when you put your boat in the water, it will go that far into the water. Clearly, you want to make the side of your boat taller than that, but this is just showing you and teaching you a scientific principle on how boats float. Because if you don't build the side of your boat high enough, the water's going to come over, it's going to sink. So you need to do this worksheet. Like I said, I stopped making everybody do it because people whining about not wanting me to know their weight. I don't care. And also, people just weren't doing it. I wanted 9 people on a team to do this worksheet, and 2 people were doing it. And then when they get an F on that section of the rubric, they're coming to me going, how did we get an F on that? 7 people didn't do it. Oh, well, I didn't know we all had to do it. I said everybody had to do it. So, here's what I did the last couple of years. I told everybody that the drivers need to do this worksheet. So that's not something you give the drivers to do. You can, but as a team, the drivers need to do these worksheets. So, moving on. Jobs, pictures is just for a PowerPoint, which is one thing. There is a PowerPoint on here, and I used to use it to kind of guide my thinking, but it's not as user-friendly as it used to be. Lots of things have changed. Like there's a slide here about how much you're going to pay for materials, but we have that somewhere else. There is a little slide that has some useful things for doing some of your math. Here are design parameters, but we also have that as a document. You can go check this out, but I'm just not using it. So that leads us to purchasing sheets. Like I just said by showing you the accounting, every single thing you are about to buy needs to have a check written for it. So, probably the number one thing, this is called the Cardboard Regatta. This is not called the Styrofoam Regatta. So, your teachers are going to print, I would suggest probably to start off, about 250 of these per teacher. So I'd get a ream of paper, split it in half, and print all these. Print a big stack of them. What you are going to do, wait, let me back up. Here's what you're not going to do. You are not going to buy one piece of cardboard and say, here's our boat. You're not going to buy a piece of cardboard like you buy wood at Lowe's or Home Depot or Menards and say, oh, I bought this, this is mine, I can use it however I want. No. You are going to buy what you use for your boat. If you have a piece of cardboard and you only need a part of it, you're going to measure the part you're going to use, you're going to draw it on here, you're going to write your dimensions. It's 12 inches by 12 inches. You are going to circle the equation you use. You are then going to do the math. 12 inches times 12 inches equals 144 square inches. A square inch is $10. So 144 square inches times $10 per square inch is $1,440. You then come down here and you write a check. Your team name, the school's address, the date. You start with 101 and go up. Pay to the order of Cabranan, because, B&S or S&B, whatever your teachers decide to do, hardware, because checks to the hardware store for materials. You write checks to Cabranan for fines. You will write a check to the NANAA, New Augusta North Advertising Agency, for your commercial. But you write the name of where you're writing the check to. Here you write it in numbers. Here you write it in words. 1,440 and no over 00 or $100. Somebody, the accountant probably would be best, or the team leader, crew chief, sign your name here. We have an example of what that should look like. I believe it even has a fake Miss Anderson signature on it. Here you go. Here's a piece of cardboard. It's 65 by 215. You use that equation. You do the math. A square centimeter is $1, but that one piece of cardboard is $13,975. You then do your team, date, A&L Hardware from the good old days. Miss Anderson signed it. That's the bottom of your boat, and that might be the biggest check you ever write outside of your commercial and maybe fines if you have people that cause trouble. So that's an example of a cardboard purchasing sheet. Dowel rods. Now the nice thing, there's only 3 kinds of these sheets, which, let me back up. Let's go in a different order. And now I won't even show you the blank one, but there's a blank purchasing sheet for styrofoam. Here's what a purchasing sheet looks like filled out. However, we've always sold styrofoam not by area, but by volume, because that styrofoam has thickness to it. 65 centimeters by 215 centimeters, but it's about half an inch thick, so about 1.2, 1.3. I would actually say it's a little bit thicker than that, but that's what this says. Once again, now you come up with even a bigger number, but the convenient thing, because like I said, this is the Cardboard Regatta, so everything on your boat needs to be covered with cardboard. You can't have a styrofoam bottom. You have to have a cardboard bottom and then a layer of styrofoam, if you please. But there's your answer for volume. A cubic centimeter of styrofoam is 50 cents. Therefore, you get that cost. You write the check and give it to your teacher. They approve it, and once you're approved, then you can go cut your cardboard or styrofoam. I always cut styrofoam for students using an electric saw, but you are going to cut the cardboard, and I'll get to that in a second. All the other materials that you can buy are on a materials purchasing sheet. So all your duct tape, clear packing tape. I usually went out and bought this with cardboard funds from the money students have brought in and grants that we have gotten. I usually have students buy one roll of this, but clear tape is only for putting signs on your boat. Nothing more, nothing less. Dowel rods for your paddles, saran wrap, which we can use again this year if your teachers don't mind. Zionsville High School did not want us to use that, so we didn't. And then plastic bottles. You have to bring in plastic bottles, but then you have to pay for them on your boat. But I just didn't want students to write one cardboard check and one styrofoam check and cut it apart however they wanted. Same way with this. You need to pay for everything you buy. When students buy duct tape, once they hand me the check to certify that they're writing a check and I put my initials on it, I then put my initials on the inside of the duct tape. I make them put their team name on the dowel rod. Saran wrap, we have massive rolls of saran wrap in the back. You pay $4,000, you use as much as you want. Bottles are $1,000 per liter. So if you buy two 2-liter bottles at $1,000 per liter, that's going to cost you $4,000 to put two 2-liter bottles on your boat or on your paddles, whatever you're using them for. Got some examples for dowel rod, plastic bottles, plastic wrap. Here is the official price list. Cardboard can be bought 4 different ways. One of these is a great deal. One of these you are getting ripped off majorly. I'm not going to tell you which one's which. So you can buy cardboard by the square foot for $1,000, square inch for $10, square meter for $9,000, or square centimeter for $1. Styrofoam can be bought by a cubic centimeter for 50 cents or a cubic inch for $10. Plastic wrap, like I said, $4,000, use whatever you want. Plastic bottles, $1,000 for a liter. Rolls of duct tape, $2,500. Yes, the same duct tape you're bringing in. Clear packing tape, that's only for putting signs on your boat. I would not use the whole roll. Use what you need. And dowel rods are either $1,000 per foot or $35 per centimeter, and we prefer not to cut those. Find a dowel rod that is the length you want and buy it so we don't have to cut it and potentially ruin it because we've cut it in half. So while I'm thinking about it, and I just said you get to cut the cardboard, Mr. Sieferman and Miss Blessick, when showing this video, and hopefully before, should get out a couple of box cutters because you are going to cut the cardboard. They can't cut it all. They also should get out a couple of the plates that, last I knew, were in either the back rooms or the side closets of both of the 8th grade rooms. There are these big plastic metal plates that I think may have been used for lining swimming pools before. I think some of them might be fiberglass. Some of them are just good old pieces of plywood. You must lay that plate on the floor, not on a table, on the floor, and then put the cardboard on that plate before you cut it. And also, that box cutter, don't ever leave it out with the blade out. I always told students, take that box cutter, make the blade go out, cut, and then pull the blade back in. Don't ever lay it down with the blade out, and always, always, always cut away from you. Before I became a teacher, I worked retail, and I watched a manager of mine one time take a razor blade box cutter, and he accidentally cut right across the top of his hand. I've never seen so much blood come out of another human being in my life. Blood was gushing out of the top of his hand. I was around for 11 years of the regatta. The regatta happened for 3 years before I got to New Augusta. That's 14 years of the regatta occurring at New Augusta North. And never have we had to call the ambulance. I've seen a couple kids get cut kind of bad. Never called the ambulance. Definitely sent a couple of kids to the nurse's office. Almost called a parent one time because after school students were working and a kid cut their hand. But we got it to stop and Mom and Dad came and got him. And I don't even know if that kid ended up going to the doctor or not. But you've got to be careful. Please don't let the 15th regatta be the first one where somebody has to go away in an ambulance because of carelessness using the box cutter. That's enough about that. Okay. Now let's move on to, let's first talk about and try to wrap up the boat itself. Here are the Cabernet design parameters and specifications. Sorry, I'm going to have to just read a little bit to you. Number 1, everything must, and I just said this, everything must be made out of cardboard. The entire hull, superstructure, seating, everything must be layered with cardboard. The maximum thickness of cardboard is 2 thicknesses. The maximum single thickness of cardboard is 1/2 inch. Thus, the maximum thickness of 2 thicknesses is 1 inch. That's going to be important because it sounds like it sounds like you guys are going to probably be bringing in a lot of the cardboard. Number 2, no rafts are allowed. Boats have hulls. Boats have sides. Rafts are just flat. You are not building a raft. You must have sides. You are not going to be lazy and take a piece of cardboard and maybe a piece of styrofoam, lay it out flat and go, we're done. There's our boat. No boats or rafts are allowed. Number 3, the maximum length of a boat is 7 feet. It must be wide enough to fit through the doorway in one piece. So if you need to pick up your boat and turn it sideways to get it through the door, that's fine. The boat cannot be longer than 7 feet. One year, many years ago, Mr. G and I were out in the hallway the night before the regatta, and we were getting ready to load the boats up into the U-Haul. And he looked at a boat, and I looked at a boat, and we kind of looked at each other, and we went and got a tape measure, and sure enough, he had a boat, and I had a boat that were 8 feet long. We fixed those boats. We cut them in half, cut a foot out of the middle of the boat, and then taped them back together. They did not meet the specifications of Cabernet, so as the Cabernet officials, we fixed them. Do not make your boat longer than 7 feet. Kind of already said, but saying no rafts. This is not a surfboard. You are not allowed to put your feet and legs in the water. Unless your whole boat's sinking, then you have no choice. Number 5, the passengers may not be enclosed above the shoulders. Do not make a boat where all we see is a head sticking out. What we don't want is for a boat to flip over and a person can't fall out of the boat. We don't want them trapped in a cardboard coffin that's sinking under the water and they can't get out. This is not a number 6. This is not a demolition derby. You need to be figuring out how to get across the water, not trying to figure out how to sabotage another boat by hitting it with sharp edges. This one blows my mind. You should be a good swimmer if you're going to be in the boat. We can get you a life jacket, but I've always told students, if you have the choice between winning a regatta boat race and dying is a really scary thing and you will probably quickly not care about the regatta if you are all of a sudden deathly afraid of dying because you're afraid you can't swim. So I beg of you, whoever you put in your boat needs to know how to swim. If they can't, we'll get you a life jacket, but I question that decision. You need to figure out a way to make your boat go. You can't use your feet, you can't use your hands, so you need to make a paddle or a paddle wheel, something to make it go. The vast majority of students make a paddle. But then, what kind of paddle? Are you making a paddle that has just one end? Or are you making like a kayak paddle that has a paddle on both ends so you can go like this? Well, that might depend on, are you putting 1 or 2 people in your boat? Number 9, just said it. Number 10, to qualify as a finisher, both people must be in the boat at the end of the race. If you have 2 people in your boat, one of them falls out, the other one they both have to get back in the boat. You can't lose a teammate and say, well, I'm still in it, I'm still paddling. No, you have to stop and get them. We encourage you to have a theme for your boat. We encourage t-shirts. Mrs. Mills for several years has approved, and I can't imagine she would change her mind this year, that you get team t-shirts. She has let students wear those on Fridays. So if you want to get a team t-shirt and get Mrs. Mills' blessing, you can wear those on Fridays, and then of course on Regatta Friday. This one is one that Mr. Seiferman and Mrs. Blessick are going to probably need to discuss. But Miss Anderson and I were tired of seeing the exact same boat design. You know, for years we had boats that looked like houses. When I say a house, it was a flat bottom, flat sides, came to a triangle point. So it looked like a roof, walls, and a basement. We got tired of seeing that, so we said you can't do that you can't do that anymore. So the next year, almost every boat looked like this: triangle, rectangle, triangle. Okay, we got tired of seeing that. So what we started doing a few years ago was we said only 6 teams can have the same kind of boat design, and you had to have it approved by us. We will only do that once you have a sponsor. So if you don't have a sponsor, but I'm going to leave that up to your teachers. There are no plans, no preset designs, no step-by-step instructions, no recipe cards, no fill-in-the-blank formats. The first ingredient in cardboard boat building is creativity. The second is problem solving. Then there is cardboard, of course. Guys, have fun with this. I can't tell you how many high school students come talk to me about the regatta. I just had a senior come talk to me about the regatta because he wanted to know if I still had their commercial, and I'm looking for it. But, you know, have fun. The regatta is, in my opinion, probably the #1 thing students remember about middle school. And then I want to bring up discipline again. As I'm sure some of you are well aware of, the stuff in red you have been fined for the last few weeks. But now I want to talk about the stuff in black, because now it's full game too. Intentional destruction of another team's boat. You are probably going to be storing these boats in the LGI. Don't go in the LGI unless the teacher's present. But one year a team brought their boat to me and showed me that somebody had taken a pencil and poked about 50 holes in the bottom of their boat. That's not funny. If anybody's laughing, knock it off. The team that happened to, a few of them were on the verge of tears. I told them to use duct tape and fix it the best they could. But if you're going to intentionally destroy somebody's boat, that's a $75,000 fine for your team, and you get kicked out of the regatta. Breach of contract. If you breach your contract, you don't do what your contract says, $20,000 fine, and you have to go get a new sponsor. Damaging Cabernet property. I've made a big deal about those plates and the box cutters, and I made a big deal about you putting it on the floor. But if you don't do it, or you do it if you cut something, use that box cutter and put a groove right along the tabletop. You put a groove across the linoleum. That's $5,000 fine, and you have to stop working for 24 hours. So if you cut the floor at 11 a.m. on Monday, you don't get to work on anything boat-related until 11 a.m. on Tuesday. Loss of a flash drive. If your teachers find a flash drive in a computer, this actually doesn't apply anymore. If you had to borrow a flash drive from Mr. Seiferman or Mrs. Blessig, if they have to replace it, it's a $2,000 fine, and you have to buy a new flash drive. Probably not a big deal anymore in 2016. What I was starting to say was failure to control your flash drive. If you leave your flash drive in a computer and it makes its way back to a teacher, they will fine you $500 for not being able to control your flash drive. Failure to follow Cabernet officials' instructions, $1,000. Damaging Cabernet supplies, breaking meter sticks, yardsticks, destroying a marker, little stuff. This is for little stuff. That's stuff that could be replaced. This is for big stuff. We can't replace the floor. We can't replace the lab tables. And everything else you already are aware of. Hold on. Okay. And the final thing, and once again, this is the rubric we've used for years. It's been tweaked. It's been changed. How Mr. Seiferman and Ms. Blessig use this, completely up to them. I'm just going to tell you what I did. What I did was I made the regatta, because it's such a big part of your grade and such a big part of your year, I made the regatta, and you spent so much time on it, I made it worth about half of the fourth 9 weeks grade. So I took all the points that I had given for tests, quizzes, homework, and then whatever points went in for the regatta, I adjusted them so that they would be half of the 9 weeks. So if we had 500 points in tests, I made the regatta worth 500 test points. If we had 1,000 points in quizzes, I made the regatta 1,000 points worth of quizzes. And then homework, I did the same thing. Well, the way I did this was the test portion was steps 1 through 6 on this rubric. And then what I did was 30% of the grade, which was my quiz portion, was a grade students gave to each other. I have a rubric where you can, how your teachers do this is up to them, but what I did was I had students grade each other based on participation. Did you have anybody in your group that did nothing? If they did nothing, give them a 0. If you had a strong worth ethic person in your group, give them a 10 out of 10. Don't say, I don't like that person, I'm giving, no. This is how were they as a teammate. So that was 30%, and then students gave themselves a grade for 10%. So what I did was this was 60%, this was 30%, the grade you give each other, and then this was 10%. And trust me, you may think that students would just give each other 10s. Well, after 3-4 weeks of having to deal with lazy people not doing anything, I've had students say, oh yeah, I'll give you a 10, and then go fill out the rubric and go 0, 0, 0. And trust me, I've watched them build the bow. I usually had a good idea on whether they were truthful or not. Gonna try to wrap this up quickly. here's what I did. For 50 points, you got 50 points for racing the course. If you made it all the way across, 50. 3/4, 40. Half, 30. Quarter, 20. Your boat went in the water but didn't go anywhere, 10. Never even got a boat in the water. In 14 years, never has there been a team that didn't build a boat. Ever. You aren't going to flunk the regatta if your boat sinks. But the better the boat, the more likely you are to finish that first race, and that's the only one we grade. Next, step 2, cost of the boats. I always had a competition within each class period for who could build the cheapest boat. Because whoever builds the cheapest boat, it's like having a contract. Whoever built New Augusta did not build New Augusta North because they said they could do it. They said they could do it for the lowest amount of money. So in engineering, the company that gets the contract is the one that can do it for the least amount of money. So if there are 4 teams in your class, whoever spends the least gets 50, whoever spends the most gets 26. If you have 5 teams, you see what that gets out of 50. Accounting. This may need to be adjusted because I can't tell you how many teams have been off $10,000 or more. But what I did is if your accounting was perfect, to up to 1,000 off, you got 50. If you were 1,000 off, you got 40. If you were more than 2,000 off, 30, 5,000, 20, 10,000, 10. You need to have all of this stuff on the side of your boat. Every boat on the side of it should have a company name, company logo, and then your team name and your team logo. So, for my teams, let's say you were Ludi Cruz Purple Swag, which was a team a couple of years ago. They had their team name, team logo, Ludi Cruz Purple Swag on the side of their boat, but then that's the team name, team logo, but then they had the Home Depot name and logo on the side of their boat. If you got all 4 of them, 50. If you have none of them, 10. Then I already showed you how your commercial is going to be graded. And then here are the worksheets for the How Tall is the Hull worksheet. You'll notice I have 2, and I said you need to have it for your drivers. If you only have 1 driver, you need to have a backup driver in case your driver is sick or an ISS the day of the regatta. So that's where you get your second one. There are some judged awards. I'm not going to tell you what those are. You also can get extra credit for winning races and making it to the next round. So I'm moving on 48 minutes. I need to wrap this up. If you have any questions, ask Mr. Seiferman and Mrs. Blessick. They can pass it on to me. They can make a call. They can cancel some of the stuff I've said. But good luck, and I will see you again when I make a 3rd video. Good luck. Bye.